Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer. Welcome to our last week of presentations during financial management. Today we're going to talk about forecasting in the age of COVID. This came from an article in the Harvard Business Review entitled Why Forecasting is So Difficult During a Pandemic. So like the rest of the world and every other marketplace, the financial world was launched into oblivion with the pandemic. So today we're going to look at four different areas. Contrast. How was this marketplace different? Is it different from other periods of time? Clearly it is. We're going to talk about why. Two, we're going to compare. Is it really all that different, or are these similar behaviors to other issues that have happened in the near recent past? Three is causes. So if it's different, why? Why is it different? And four, what can we expect going forward? So this is a graph of the economic spread for Q2 of 2020 that was forecasted. In February, pessimists were saying, I think the economy is going to shrink by about 11.7 percentage points. Optimists said, nah, only 8.2. If you compare that to late April, just a few weeks later, not that much later, pessimists were now saying 65%, while optimists were saying 8.2. So these are huge, huge differences, drastic differences. People are all over the map. Nobody knows what to expect. Whoa, that's a difference of 3.5% versus 56.8%. That's a huge difference. And I think it makes a big difference in the reliability of the information that we're getting and how we can make decisions moving forward. We've talked a lot in this class about numbers are great, but numbers only mean something in the context of how you're identifying them and where that data is coming from and how you're deriving that data. So this is really important. And this big gap could cause a lot of problems depending on how you use it. So maybe this is just an issue of we don't have enough data. Harvard Business Review hasn't been following the US economy for very long, according to this article. So let's look at a country that has much, much more data. Brazil and Mexico both have a lot more data, have been followed much more closely on the macro level. So if you look at pre-2007, typically the spread was about 3 percentage points difference, not too big of a difference. In 2008, during the financial crisis, it jumped to 6 percentage points, still under 10%. So they're still within 10% of each other. Optimists and pessimists are still saying, yeah, it's about 10 percentage points, give or take. 2010s, it dropped back down to under 3% per spread, but now we are at a 7% spread in those countries. So even countries where we have a lot of data, we don't know what's going on and we don't know what's going to happen. So why? Why is this the case? There are three big culprits. One is speed, two is data, and three is epidemiology. So speed. The first one is typically, not always, but a lot of times we can see a recession coming. We make some plans. We try to keep people in their jobs, make some adjustments. That didn't happen here. We just shut it down. People lost their jobs. People were quarantined at home. There was no option to kind of have a plan in place the way it played out in the US. So speed. Two, having to do with speed, is that legislation has to fly through Congress. Typically, things take weeks, months, sometimes years to get through the House, onto the executive committee, into Congress, or excuse me, into the Senate. And now it's taking a matter of days sometimes to try and keep America afloat. The US afloat. And so there's not a lot of time for research or in-depth research as they might like, or some negotiating or some, thought, kind of bouncing some ideas around. It's just flying through. So it's coming so fast. Two is data. Typical person sitting at home, according to this article, is not going to respond to a survey. And if they do, they're likely not your usual viewer. So we don't have data that's accurate. Second, inflation, in counting for inflation, things like restaurant inflation. Well, when you don't have restaurants that are actively operating their normal way, how can you really count what they're actually doing? So the data is flawed. And three is epidemiology. Financial advisors are not, and CFOs, people in the economic world are not epidemiologists. They don't know what's coming next. They can't predict how the pandemic's going to play out. So they just don't have all the data or the information that they need to make some of these decisions and to have all of the information that they need. So what comes next for all my Hamilton fans? One, a vaccine. A vaccine leads to some economic stability because we know what comes next. Then we learn. We learn and we build better forecasting models. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just going to take a while. So I look forward to answering your questions. Thanks so much and have a great evening.